so I started being a writer. I started writing around 12th grade in high school. Just kind of did it out of boredom, honestly. I was in school where the last two semesters of my schooling, my senior year, I only had two classes. So I went to English and I went to what was called office duty. And so you have basically have like a job at the school. And so my job was to be in the library and help people check library books in and out. And so that is kind of boring after a while. And this is really pre-internet, right? We had computers in the school, but it wasn't really the time. We didn't have internet yet, really, and so it wasn't like I could pull my phone out and just, what we do nowadays, scroll through your phone. And so it would be a lot of sitting and a lot of boredom. And so I just started writing. I don't know where it came from. I just started writing one day and I was like, I like this, I enjoyed it. And so I just kept doing it, but I never really shared any poetry with anybody or anything like that. It wasn't really like this big revelation that everybody knew about. It wasn't until I went to college that I saw a flyer for an open mic poetry night called Spoken Word. And so spoken word and poetry are a little different. And I'll kind of explain what that is. And so I saw this flyer for open mic poetry, and I went and I saw these people on stage performing spoken word, and it just totally blew my mind. It totally changed my thought process, and I was like, "Yo, I want to do that." And so I started writing, and just made up in my mind that at some point I was going to get up enough nerve to get on the stage and perform some spoken word poetry. So a little breakdown of what spoken word is. So we know that poetry is usually something that we read. That's what a poem is. Poem is something that we read. Where spoken word is meant to be heard. So that's the difference. We call it performance poetry because you see people on stage, and we call it slam poetry as well, where poets are on stage performing, and there's hand gestures, there's different inflections in their voice. And so these are the things that make spoken word a little bit different than just page poetry or people who consider themselves page poets. I consider myself a spoken word artist. So that's just a little bit of the difference, but it's all about the written word, though. And so that's where I started, and that helped me build confidence. It helped me in just in life in general, taking advantage of opportunities that were presented as I would continue to navigate through life, just trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do. Being a speaker was never something I ever even thought that would be a part of my journey. It just kind of happened, honestly. Um, I was performing at a show, and a gentleman saw me performing, and he was like, I love your poem. I love what you did up there on stage. And he's like, I just love your stage presence too. He was like, you controlled the crowd the whole night. And I was just like, oh, cool, thanks. And so he asked me if I would come to his business and if I would do a talk for his employees. And he was the president of a highly popular pet care business. And I was like, I don't know really anything about your business. I'm a poet. I have a dog, but I don't know what do you want me to come and talk about? And he was like, I don't know, just come and just do something, do what you did on stage. And so he ended up sending me some information in an email about his company, about his business, about their culture. And I ended up just taking that information that he gave me, and I just used it to do what I do as a poet, as a storyteller. So I just weaved stories around their culture, their business. I weaved stories around the event. And I went and I did it, and they were just blown away by it because they had never seen anything like that before. And it kind of just sparked an idea in my mind of like, wow, okay, like poetry can be used in this way to help businesses move forward. And so for me, it started to become this thing of thinking about all the jobs I've had in my life, where I've gone to conferences and I've sat there and I've looked over and I've seen people sleep, or I've looked over and I've seen people on their phones not paying attention to this highly intellectual, highly regarded speaker who knows exactly what they're talking about, but people are like not paying attention. And I think it just becomes this thing of like engagement and the culture of what people think about when they come to a conference. Oh, I have to go because it's a work conference. And then you get there and it's just like the same thing. And so I thought about all these things and I thought to myself, listen, art is not, it's not a break from the message that you want to give as the employer or as the business owner. Like art is actually going to be the car or the vehicle to carry that message forward. And so once I started presenting that idea to people and started to have them understand like what art could be, you don't have to have five speakers and then have a band in the middle to get everybody amped up and get their like juices flowing again. It's like, no, like the art can actually be a part of the big stage of what you are trying to accomplish. And then once you start to pull at people's heartstrings and start to pull at people's emotions and pull at their sensibilities, then there's the opportunity for change. So that's what I do. And I'm excited that I can put poetry on this stage and share with people in a way that allows them to, kind of look at themselves and figure out how they can continue to push forward and get the results that they want. So definitely. Again, I think as speakers, we're just built different. I think we're just built different than everybody else. And when we talk about like innovation and the ability to innovate, like this is what we do, right? When we're on stage and the fire alarm is going off accidentally in another room, we have to keep going. When the mic is messed up and you have to project your voice even louder than you were before because the microphone is no longer working. We have to innovate. We innovate on the spot all the time. So when the world hits us in the face and says, hey, listen, you got to innovate and change, then we have to innovate and change, and I'm sure just like many other speakers, I lost a lot of work because, here in the United States in March, things just started to get canceled like pretty much immediately in March and the dominoes just fell. And so all of the events that I had, they all went away, right? And so I had to find a way to change and innovate what I was doing. Now, after I cried in the closet for about an hour, right? I got myself together and I figured out a way to change and to still be of service. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We're here to service people. We're here to help people make it through. We're here to motivate. We're here to inspire. But we're also here to elevate. And that's what my company is called, Elevate Your Vibe, right? And so we're here to elevate. And so I had to come up with a way to kind of change the narrative and change how I would service people. And, thankfully, we do live in an age where we have the internet, where we have the ability to, still interact with each other. Because honestly, I really don't know what we would do if we didn't have the internet right now, right? We would really be, I don't know where we would be, because just interacting with people, even in this space, is for some people all we have. And so to touch people's lives and to help people, even if it's just hey man, how are you doing? How's everything going with you? Are you all right today? Just that small conversation and seeing people's face. We are humans and we long for connection and we long for physical touch. We long to be around other people. And so since we couldn't do that the way we wanted to this year, this medium has, quite frankly, saved a lot of people's lives. And so I'm just grateful that I was still able to, reach people where they were. And again, this year was definitely a lot more, there was a lot more of the inspirational talk happening this year, just to try to keep people moving forward and keep them sane and keep them mentally healthy as we navigate through, this deadly and unfortunate virus that we're dealing with. I think just being patient with yourself, you know, giving yourself that space and that grace to grow, to fail. We live in this society and this age of the internet and, just all of these things where it's like it's instant gratification. And it's okay to just have like an old school oven type of mentality, like let it simmer. Give yourself the opportunity and the space to grow, right? Give yourself the space and the opportunity to make mistakes, to learn a lesson where it's like, okay, I see what I did. I put the work in, and I see why it didn't work. Okay, okay, it's okay. Good job. Now let's figure out how to just go back to step one and then figure out how to get to the next place. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and even in this virtual world that we're in now, we're still like putting so much pressure on ourselves. And we're taught and we're told that if you didn't make something happen this year, in 2020, when you had all this time, then what's wrong with you? And I'm like, no, like let's not do that to ourselves. We're still human beings with emotions, with feelings, and sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, and that's just a part of our daily lives. But as long as we, you know that, hey, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And if I had 23 things on my list of things to do today and I only did two, I did two, right? Don't beat yourself up over every little thing. Give yourself some time to grow. That's what I would say. That's what I've learned. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of poets who, when I went to college, who I still look up to as some of the most influential poets, and people in my life. And so those poets are people like Arima Cleveland and Michael Malcolm Williams. Um, these are some poets and friends of mine who kind of taught me the ropes, who kind of showed me what it is to be a poet, what it is to use your voice. And so I always look to those people as some of the big inspirational people of my life. The more popular poets like Gil Scott Heron and the Last Poets and the Watts Prophets. These are some other mainstream American poets, spoken word artists who came about in the 60s and the 70s, who I also really look up to as influential artists who helped me to kind of find my voice in this world as a writer and as a poet. So yeah, I think again we kind of teach it already as speakers, but I think diving into your storytelling ability. We all tell stories every single day of our lives. We're telling a story as we live, and so I think if you can really master the art of telling a story, you know, taking the time to have the pregnant pauses when you need it, taking the time to really slow down and talk. Like I love awkward silences. As a speaker on stage, like I'm gonna make you sit in this thought for as long as I feel like you need to sit in it. I don't feel the pressure of it's quiet. What should we do? No, let it be awkward. If that's what's necessary, let it be awkward, right? Because it's all a part of the story. So the main thing I say is just master the art of storytelling, master the art of being authentic, master the art of being vulnerable on stage. You know, we always want to pull stories from other things. We always want to pull stories from the media or the news or wherever we get our stories from. But be vulnerable. Talk about yourself. You know, talk about your divorce. Talk about your children. Talk about the time that you failed. And it may be embarrassing, it may be uncomfortable, but guess what? Somebody else is feeling and understanding exactly where you're coming from. And that's going to hit so much harder than a story about a random person who you don't know and they don't know. They're just meeting you. They don't know you like that, but you're on stage. You have the power, right? So use that power to be open, to be vulnerable. Because again, when I'm vulnerable with you, now we have a connection. Now there's something there that wasn't there before. And so whatever's following that story, whatever information that I want you to do, whatever charge I'm leaving with you, it's gonna stick a little bit harder and a little bit better now than it would have if I didn't do that. So I talk about myself on stage. I talk about my family. I talk about things that are important to me, and because I think it's important for people to see you and not just see, um, again, a robot on stage who's coming to talk to me about something that I already know about. And that's what causes people to open up a little bit more.